promised land in general was also viewed as sacred space. Again, Deuteronomy 32, 8, and 9 is kind of an important passage. We don't need to rabbit trail too much on that, but that's the passage where the nations of the world are disinherited by God at Babel, and they are assigned to lesser sons of God, and Israel becomes Yahweh's own portion. There is no Israel yet. Right after Babel is when Abraham is called. There will be an Israel, and that'll be God's place and his people. So the rest of the Old Testament is framed by that event, God's decision to, essentially put a barrier between himself and the nations, and then create a new nation out of nothing for himself. And it worked out geographically. The promised land becomes a sacred space that one enters and leaves. So it's linked to geography. There's even a hint that it's watched by angelic guardians. Now this is a reference to Joshua 5. Anybody know what that might refer to? Joshua, they're on the verge of going into the land. Who does he meet? Who does he meet at the door? Or who meets him at the door? Before they cross into the land, who does he run into? Yeah, it's the the captain of the Lord's host. And what he says to Joshua, Joshua asks, are you friend or foe? I'm paraphrasing here. And the answer he gets is, take your shoes off, because the place where you're standing is holy ground. It's the same language at Exodus 3, the burning bush. Gets the same reply, and then Joshua's like, oh, okay, I get it. And he does, because this is the commander of the Lord. So this is the angel of the Lord, because the description there, just a little commentary on this. If you go to Joshua 5, the commander of the Lord's host is described as having his drawn sword in his hand. That phrase occurs only 2 other times in the Hebrew Bible, and they are both used of the angel of the Lord in other scenes. So it's kind of obvious who this is. 1 Samuel 5:5, just by way of another illustration. There's a lot of cosmic geography in the Bible. Israel is associated with the God of Israel naturally, but this is God's space. You needed to be in God's space, his sacred space, to be in right relationship with him. If you were not, you weren't supposed to be there. Remember last week we talked about there were certain sins you could commit that would pollute the land. This is why those sins were punished by either death or banishment. And if there was enough of it, God said, I'm going to kick all of you out, because this is my space. And we looked a little bit at Leviticus 26, some of the curses in Deuteronomy. There was this sense that the land itself was sacred, and if it was polluted enough, God would just remove its occupants, its human occupants, for a certain time, and then maybe, bring them back if they were repentant. There are other passages that hint at this too. There's actually a lot of them. One of my favorites is 1 Samuel 5:5. This is when the Philistines enter Israelite territory to, fight against Israel, and they capture the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, they take the Ark of the Covenant back to their camp, their place, and there's the shrine of Dagon there, a little temple, whatever they had for Dagon. They put the Ark in there, and again, we know the rest of the story. They come back the next day, and Dagon is a stump. Head's gone, his limbs are gone. And it's funny, but what we miss is verse 5. It says that the priests of Dagon, after they find what's left of Dagon, the priests of Dagon refuse to walk over the threshold of Dagon to this day. In other words, the place where they found Dagon was now ground that Yahweh owned. Okay, it was under a new Lord. It was under dominion of the God of Israel. And so even in their own temple, they walked around the spot because it was controlled by a different deity. They weren't taking any chances. We're not Yahweh's worshipers, so we're not going to walk on his turf because we might just end up like Dagon. Okay, that was the whole point. 2 Kings 5, that's the Naaman story, again, which was part of the sermon I did here, but the cosmic geography stuff there, this is when Naaman wants to take dirt back with him, because he says, I'm only going to sacrifice to Yahweh now. Can I take dirt with me back home? Sure. Why does he do that? Because it connects him to Yahweh. He wants dirt from Israel. David is, I don't have the passage up here, but when David is running from Saul, like he is most of the time, and he has to leave Judah, and he winds up in Philistine territory. But when he leaves Judah, he essentially has a hissy fit or a pity party and says, how in the world am I going to pray to the Lord here? I'm not, I'm no longer in the land. It's not a denial of Yahweh's omnipresence. David's upset because he doesn't know how or if he can actually be in fellowship with God because he is not in sacred space. It bothers him. He's troubled by it.